right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, and this is For the First Cup with Jules on UCY.TV. Good morning. How is everybody doing on this rainy, dark, and dreary Wednesday? I knew it was supposed to rain yesterday, and we really didn't get much. But I was not aware of today, so I was a little surprised at 5 minutes to 9 a.m. Eastern, like 5 minutes ago. 7 minutes ago, I opened my eyes, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. Doesn't do much for my motivation for getting out of bed, that's for sure. But I'm here, and my air conditioner's on, so it is not 210 degrees in here, so that helps a lot. It kind of makes it hard when you come out here and not only are you half asleep, but then it's like you're walking into an oven and the door closes. Oh, look at this. I'm just getting my pages together, and I'm finding interesting things like researchers treat incarceration as a disease epidemic. How nice. All right. So it has been a couple days. I believe the last day I was here was Friday. Interesting weekend. I actually attempted to get away from the network for a few days. I had some things I had to do. My dad asked me for help. And we had an old family friend who had 3 close brushes with death over the last week and a half. It was his birthday this past Friday, so we did a Thank God You Didn't Die weekend party. But it was good. You know, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I go full throttle ahead 7 days a week. I never get a break here, so every once in a while I need to step away from the radio network. But I gotta tell you, I really need to kind of talk about this with you guys. This is getting to be too much for me, guys. I have to tell you this. Since Friday, well, let's put it this way. I don't like waking up in the morning, having my phone next to my head. Now, I let it die yesterday, so I have no idea what messages are there, and I don't care right now. Not at all, because I'm not going to start another day like I have the last few, where I wake up and I have emergencies the second I open my eyes, and I jump out of bed screaming F-bombs. That is not healthy for me. You know, when I worked in corporate America, that's how I was all the time. And this was supposed to be an exercise in Jules getting herself healthy again. Not being stressed out, getting her immune system back into whack. After that whacked out pregnancy that it took me 7 years to get myself back. You know, I needed to chill out a little bit. And that's where the whole network hobby thing came from, that now has turned into another daily occurrence that I'm getting out of bed screaming F-bombs and I'm sitting here stressed out 7 days a week. That's not good. That's not good for anybody. So, between Friday and yesterday, I've had 8 shows call off now. And 4th of July weekend is coming, and I'm going to guarantee you that probably mostly nobody is going to want to do a show. Which there's nothing wrong with that. Except that every time a show calls off, or every time someone decides that I have to cut something or whatever, that is additional work on top of everything else that I deal with now that goes to Jules. And guys, I couldn't even leave for a weekend to help my dad wrap aluminum and celebrate the Thank God You Didn't Die 3 times in the last week and a half. I mean, the poor dude, first of all, he had his 72nd birthday. He flipped an ATV, broke 5 ribs. 5 ribs on the side that he has the one long. Then he ends up in the hospital. Down in wherever, Hillbillyville, down south somewhere. They went on this ATV excursion, so it wasn't here. He was in the hospital there, then he got out. Then they brought him back, and he ended up having to drive himself home. Somebody hit his truck, He totaled his truck. He ended up in the hospital again. And then he has no recollection of driving home from a Father's Day event. No alcohol involved whatsoever. Apparently had wiped out major mailboxes and everything, and they think that now there's some effect from all these accidents. And here's the thing, you never know. You never know when your day is going to come. He was one of these guys all these years. He never really, he's going to live forever. And it really shook him up a lot. And actually it shook us all up. I mean, that's all we talked about this weekend. Was looking at, all the things that could happen and how important it is that we pay attention and we take care of our families. And he's looking at all the things he's been doing that's just wasting time. And, now is the time to do it. If you're going to do something, spend time with your family, do this, do that. And it really got me thinking, guys. Here I am. I hate to say this, but pretty depressing. I don't even want to say it, but I'm over 45, man. Once you hit that 45 peak, it's all downhill from here. Yeah, I'm not planning on it being downhill. Wow, it's pouring. I was like, what is that noise? I turned my head. It's pouring rain. And if my life, I know this is a good thing. I tell myself that every single day. That's what gets me out of bed. That what we're doing here is a good thing. That's why it is worth putting your time and effort into doing all this. But here's the thing. There comes a point where it might be a good thing for everybody else, but it's not a good thing for Jules. And summer vacation started yesterday afternoon. So I now have a summer vacation on my hands to deal with as well for the entire summer. 8 shows since Friday. Guys, the summer didn't even start yet. So I'm not looking at this as being a good thing for Jules at all. Like another whole summer where I am a prisoner in this dark, dank, stinky cave. That's what the last 2 summers. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't seen anyone. I haven't done anything. You know why? Because I've been running this thing the entire summer. It's fine for winter, for fall. I don't really do much. I hate cold. This is fun and it keeps me occupied. But the summer, I have obligations. I have people I have to take care of. I have people I have to see. I have friends that want to do stuff. My friends, the last couple times that I've gone now, these last week or so, or last month or so, to see my friends, they're like, my God, Joel, whatever the hell happened to you? Guy just vanished. So all I'm saying is I don't know, but I got to tell you, after this weekend, I am honestly not very overjoyed with any of this, and I'm kind of bored. And I'm just looking at it all. Where's the payback? And the payback is we have a great network. Yay! But where's the payback in my health? I feel like shit. I never get to sleep. I never get to eat. I never get to exercise. I never get to see my friends. I never get to do anything with my family. You think I have 1 second to clean or vacuum or cook or shop or anything? Have any life whatsoever? No. So that's bullshit. I think it's absolute bullshit. I'm taking my life back, like I said before. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm planning on doing. But anything that's going to require me time and effort is probably going to have to go. Anything that can be self-sufficient might be able to stay, and then in the fall I'll look at it again. But anything that's going to require me time or effort, that's it. No more effort for me. I'm done. And even keeping up on this news is like mind-bending. I forgot my internet connection this weekend. I have a phone that I do my internet on, one that tethers, and then one that doesn't. The one that doesn't, of course, sucks. Phone internet sucks anyway. But the phone that tethers is a lot better, and I can at least connect my notebook, and when I am out of town, I am able to at least keep up on what's been going on, share my news, keep my Facebook pages and all the website stuff up and running. And I got about halfway there and then realized I forgot my connection. I was like, oh. And that's too far by that point. I can't turn around and go back. So I felt naked this weekend. I couldn't do anything. So it means I couldn't get into the server. You know, everyone who waits for the last minute to go, oh, I can't do a show, Jules. Well, you know what? The sad fact of the matter is if I have no connection, there's nothing I can do. And I know emergencies come up because it comes up for everybody. But on the other hand, when you have 40 shows, okay, plus, you know, there's multiple people in each show, put yourself in my shoes. I didn't want to be running an organization that had 40 people that I had to, you know, everybody's problem became mine. And I love all these guys. I want everyone to be happy and I want their families to be healthy. And I know we all have lives. But it always falls back on me. You know, anything that needs to be changed, anything that goes wrong. I get these super long email messages explaining to me every detail of the problems they had in Skype. Well, guess what? I just pay Skype. I have nothing to do with Skype or if it works or what the service does. There's no code that I can tweak. It is a software as a service just like the phone company. And guess what? They're internet-based. If they don't work, sure, good luck sending them a ticket. Maybe 6 months from now they might figure out what's wrong, or maybe mysteriously one day it'll just fix itself. You know, it's like, I don't know, I just look at all these things I'm doing now, and these are things that I've done over the last 20 years in careers that I no longer have because they're things that just drive me batshit crazy, like being responsible for all kinds of people. Yeah, I was a director of a division. It's not an issue for me to run a large organization. That's one thing I'm good at is orchestrating things. But like I've said a million times before, I am one of those people that I take off the training wheel and I push it down the hill. And anyone that's brought into my organization has to have my work ethic. And my work ethic, I'm pretty tough. Because I usually never take a break. I went probably 15 years without ever taking a vacation when I was working. You know, sell my vacation. Or I would be forced to take a vacation because I would lose it if I didn't take it, and then I work from home my whole vacation. So, I don't know. I just had to get that off my chest. There's a couple other things I want to talk about, but I don't know if I want to talk about these on air. I guess I've been monitoring. I mean, I always listen to the shows, but I've been monitoring some of this content. And, you know, here's something. I'm all about, like, let's go to other networks and meet other people and, you know, make partnerships or whatever. But I want to make it very clear to everybody who's listening, I have no other affiliation with no other network on the internet, on Blog Talk, on any other place. UCY is not affiliated with any other organization. Right, well, not organization, radio network. Let's put it that way. And just because a host says that they are affiliated with someone does not mean that I am affiliated with someone, does not mean the network is affiliated with someone, does not mean that I agree with anything that's being said by said group who host says we are affiliated with. That is absolutely untrue. And I am not going to hear that anymore on my network. So just as a warning, if anybody's out there and they're telling people that I'm affiliated with some network that I am not, make yourselves aware. I am not. I have a few groups and friends that I affiliate myself with. You know, Nick's Anti-Media Group, Nick Burnaby, and he's a host of ours. You know, Brandon Turville, and the stuff that he writes, absolutely. He's a host of ours. These are people that I know, people that I've known for quite a while, people that I trust. Pigmine News, Rob, he's a friend of mine. And the Lion, Madison, he's a friend of mine. Against the Wall and JJ's a friend of mine. Those are people that I'm affiliated with. But I don't know about any of these other crackpots freaking yelling about shit on my network that we've cracked them in, backdoor, freaking simulcast. That had nothing to do with me. I don't know who these people are. I want nothing to do with their organizations. Nobody has ever spoken to me. Oh, here's another thing. Coming on my network and declaring that you're a host on my network, yet you've never spoken to me, ever, I think is a bit of a problem. If you're on my personal Skype, that means you're fine. If you're a co-host of someone that we've discussed it, that's fine. But if you just invite yourself to my network and start announcing to everyone that you're a part of my network, that's not fine. I didn't tell you could be a part of my network, nor have I approved you, nor have I talked to you, nor have I even looked at your background and decided whether or not you are worthy to be here. Have I investigated to make sure you're not another asshole shill? I've had enough of them. So, warning. If you're here and I didn't approve you, I'm probably coming for you. How's that? All right. Enough network bullshit. So, guys, anyway, I just was going to lay it on the line to you. I mean, I'm not any bullshit for anybody. You guys know that, right? I think you've been listening long enough. My dad, we were talking this weekend, and even his buddy, the one that almost died, caught a couple shows. And here's the thing. What you hear from me on the radio is like you're sitting with me and we're drinking a beer, all right? I'm no different in person than I am here. So I think you guys kind of get me, all right? And here's the thing. I feel like I just want my life back. And the second that I try to back off a little bit, and I got to tell you, for me to even leave a few days means that I got to do double time all week. I can't talk to anyone. So I got all these shows to cut and all this programming to set and all the Facebook posts. I automated everything this weekend, did it for every show to post to UCY's page. That was from the second I got up, I did the show, and I worked all the way through until I threw my clothes on and ran out the door Friday. It shouldn't be that way, but if I can manage to get it all done so I can run out the door for a couple days and have it all be going great, the second I turn my back or I'm not listening, all this crazy stuff happens, I have to say that pisses me right the fuck off. I'm not happy right now. I'm too tired, so I'm not going to do anything about it this second. And unfortunately, I'm on air. But I will. Wow, it is pouring. No wonder it looks like it's 8 o'clock at night here. All right, I want to do some news now. That's the crazy stuff the last couple days. So, anyway, I just want the listeners to know I greatly appreciate everybody. Without you guys, we wouldn't even be here. I would have given this up a long time ago. I've had a lot of people who have donated to the network, a lot of people who've given their time and effort, a lot of people who've supported us just by nothing else but hanging out and chat. And that means a lot to everybody here. It would be one thing if there was some sort of motivation beyond me wanting to do good. And there isn't. And when it comes to my life and my kid, or doing good for the rest of the world, sometimes I think I need to be selfish. I don't think it's fair. It's not fair to my kid. It's not fair to Jules' immune system. It can't go back into adrenal exhaustion, okay? I can't wake up every morning screaming F-bombs. That's not good. I can't do that. All right. Let's hit some news now. Anyway. Oh, you know what? Here. Let's do something. I hate being hard-ass when I wake up, but everybody knows that's why this show's here. Because Jules a bitch when she wakes up in the morning. That's why it's before the first cup. Okay. I'm going to connect myself. so we can have some clippies going on today. La 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 la. I'm not in a very good mood. Nor can I remember my name. Oh, there we go. I don't know if anyone heard this. This past week, we actually launched a new show. There we go. We launched a new show on Monday, called United Front Radio. Monday night, I switched some things around. They will be running following Brandon Tuberville's show, both Monday and Fridays. We're doing the repeat thing on both days. Eventually, they may actually pick up the second slot on Fridays, but I want to give them that option. Brandon brought them to my attention. It is Daniela Walls and Kyle McCarthy, and they both work for the organizations United Front Against Austerity and the Tax Wall Street Party, which are both organizations that Webster Tarpley is a part of. Tarpley actually will be a guest quite often. We've been talking to them for a while, and they had wanted to do a show, so I'm very excited. Their first show was great. It'll be replaying again on Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. But please give them a round of applause and welcome them into UCY. They're both great people. Kyle has been a guest quite a number of times on Madison and on Brandon's show. And they're both really nice people. They both definitely get it. And I'm really excited to have them as a part. So just wanted to give you a heads up in case you missed it. All right. So let's take a look at the news. It's still kind of early. Good morning, everybody in chat. Hey, it's Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. So you're Koi. Yes, I want to thank you to Cheryl, to Zori, to Mike and Iota. You guys all over the last couple of weeks sent me a donation, and I greatly appreciate it. I always try to send an email, though I apologize. You guys know this. I have like 4 email addresses with the network, and then I have my show email, then my personal email, and then all the other stuff that I do as webmaster. It's very hard for me to get to all this stuff. And so it's just a big round robin, you know. I think I got it down pretty well now, where every day of the week I have another area that I need to focus on, you know. So I think I got it now. I at least get to email once a week. But for a while there, it was going for like a month. I didn't have time to check. So I just want to thank everybody for your support. I want to thank everybody for, you know, helping us in any which way you can. I wish there was some easier way to automate things. So, you know, I mean, if I could even give the reins to someone to like manage for a couple days while I was gone, I would. But it's not. It really is not that easy. And unless you really know what you're doing, me giving someone the reins could like one wrong click and all my automation could be gone. It would be really bad. So I really don't have anyone I could do that with. Oh, but all right. So I'm not going to. I'm not talking about that anymore. Let's have some fun. I've at least had a couple sips of coffee now. Well, I don't know. Should we lighten it up a little bit with a little tunage? I know JJ does that sometimes. Hold on. I have... Oh, man, my nose is just driving me crazy today. I have a folder that I probably should have done this before I woke up. Here we go. Yeah, hold on. There's a Birds tune I really like. This will allow me to fill up my cup. And it'll be happy morning music. Just for a minute. I've used this in a few shows before. Maybe. Oh, la, la, la. Hurry up. Let's go. Here it goes. Maybe. La, 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 la. Oh, I guess we might have to give this. Oh, there we go. I like this tune. It's a YouTube freebie. You know, this should be an arthritis drug commercial music. It's how my knuckles feel. I think I even know the commercial you're talking about there, Dan. Yes, contact your doctor and see if fucking all is right. Okay, that was awesome. Yeah, it's one of those freebie YouTube songs, but I do kind of like it. I put it on a few times in headphones and turned it up, and I'm like, twank, twanky, twank. Yes, I'm having a flood. I went down to go get coffee, and my garage is kind of raised. I don't know, my house is weird. It's like a split level, so there's, the kitchen, living room on one level, and then you have stairs that go down, and it's the chest-high basement, with the windows at chest height at the ground level outside. And then you come out the other side and you go back upstairs and come out into the garage. Well, apparently it must really be pouring outside, because as I get to the bottom of the stairs, heading into the back hall for the basement, I stepped in a rolling mass of water that was on top of the rug. So it must really be pouring out there if it somehow came up from under the floor, under the stairs. So now I have more fun for once the show is over. Woo! Well, good morning. Thank you for allowing me to go get another cup of coffee, because now I am all better. So yeah, I spent some time last night going through probably the last 5 or 6 days of stories that we missed. And there were a few things that I wanted you guys to hear, see, listen to. And one of them was, I almost could believe it, but then I almost couldn't believe it. And it's just a tiny little clip, but check this out. The CIA, and I'm sure that maybe they decided not to do this after the photographs of his being buried at sea became the utmost national security. But here we go. Get that memorabilia.
Washington Post says the CIA developed a scary toy action figure of Osama bin Laden way back in 2005. Its face melted to reveal a red-faced demon underneath. The toy was supposed to turn kids and their parents away from the actual terrorist, but the project never made it past the prototype phase.
So talk about propaganda from the propaganda department. The State Department and the CIA developed an Osama bin Laden action figure whose face melted away to show the face of a demon to keep you away from Al-Qaeda. Is that not one of the most ridiculous things you have ever heard? I honestly could not believe your tax dollars at work, mind you. I think I want one of those collector's editions so I can sell it on eBay. You know how much that must be worth? They couldn't even get photographs. You know what people would give for an action figure of Osama bin Laden? I've seen a lot of news lately too about radicalizing of children in the United States. And they really, really, really are pushing that now. And the internet is the tool of corruption. Of course it is. The internet is the tool of corruption regardless of how old you are. The internet is also the tool of mass amounts of learning, which has caused us to all connect together. And without the internet, we would be where Mae Brussels and friends were still in the 80s with our dot connecting. YouTube was what really, in my personal opinion, was probably one of the most disruptive technologies in the last 20 years. YouTube changed the world. I remember the first time, before YouTube, they had Google. There was the Google video. And they forced me to move over to YouTube. But YouTube is where, when Google bought it, it really took off. And I remember thinking, how cool is this? I could be watching people from all over the world and just getting their personal opinions without filters from television. One-on-one, I'm listening to you, and you can share with me what your life is like and what it's like in Costa Rica, you know what I mean, and what the real truth is. It's really a wonderful thing, but God forbid, it means there's too much truth. It means that the lies aren't hidden well anymore, and it means that the people have the upper hand. They've lost control. And you know that they really, I am not quite sure right now, all of these pieces are moving into place. And there's a lot of them all at one time. So I'm really not sure what they're going to pull. But here's something that I've been talking about for a while. And I knew this was going to come full circle. And I'm telling you guys, they wanted it to percolate. Because I really, really am afraid that they are going to pull the pandemic card. The pandemic card would disarm people. They wouldn't have to worry about weapons as everybody gets sick, and then they'd be begging for some sort of cure that may or may not come. It would also help them with the martial law. I mean, all that's in place for pandemics. All the anti-vaxxers who won't take vaccines, well, that's in the NDAA and the Civilian Attorney Manual. You are a risk to others now if you're unvaccinated, so we will vaccinate you against your will. It would be quite a good way to bring it all down. And now when you're watching this whole border thing, and I know, guys, let's not, I'm not going to question whether, no comment then. I have my own opinions, you guys have yours. So we don't have to agree on immigration, but what we should agree on is that there's a real travesty going on with these parents from Central America that are sending waves, tens of thousands of little kids on their own across the border and dumping them off here, hoping that they'll have a better life. Sure, what are we going to do with them? We're not going to ship them back. We're not going to feed them to dogs. We're not going to put them in a slave camp like they would in North Korea if you shipped your kids all to North Korea. But on the other hand, I'm watching the news the other day, this weekend, and they're talking about sending, and I don't think that's going to happen now, but they were talking about potentially sending large numbers of these undocumented children that were pushed over the border up to Niagara Falls, U.S., Grand Island, up here, in a facility that we can house and teach and train and clothe and feed and give them health care. That's wrong. And I know, if it were me in Central America, in a nation that has decapitations and drug gangs and wars, I would want my child to have a better life than to end up in a drug gang and probably dead by 20 years old. Agreed. That is what a parent will do for their child. But just sending 50,000 children across the border, do you imagine how that poor baby feels? No mom, no dad, no family, no life, and so now we need to raise them and feed them and clothe them, and that's great, except that maybe we should be taking funds from somewhere else, like, I don't know, bombs that we're dropping on, who are we dropping bombs on now? Iraq? Are we dropping bombs on Iraq yet? That whole retarded thing that's going on over there. You see Israel freaking lobbing bombs now in Syria. So they're actually helping the Syrian rebels who happen to be ISIS, who happen to be in Iraq, who happen to... Who do we look at Friday? Some new whack-a-mole Yemeni group just popped out of nowhere who seems to be joining forces now. Likes have never been seen. I watch all this, and I watched all this up until Friday, and then I took off for the weekend and sat with all the old timers. I hung out with the 70-year-olds this weekend and partied my ass off. And you know what? They party me under a table, just so you know that. They're hard old dudes, but I was surprised. They all have been watching now. I think I mentioned this the other day, and they all were like, Joel, we used to think you were nuts. But I see it now. They all see it. They all see it, which makes me very happy. But in looking at all this, everybody sees how much bullshit this is. absolute utter bullshit. Why are we even letting this continue? And I was very proud of one of the old timers because he said exactly what I've been saying all this time. We tend to forget that we pay the paychecks. That's it. That's the world I come from. That's the corporate world, man. You don't do your job or what you've been asked to do, you're fired. Period. That's it. I might give you 5 warnings even if I like you. You're still going to have to go eventually when you become a big pain in my ass. Because if you are the one pain point and I have 50 other pain points I need to deal with, I can't be dealing with you every single week. Oh, here comes the rain again. Wow! It looks like somebody has a bucket of water and they're just pouring it down my back window. Oh, I hope that's not coming in my... Oh, there, hubby is up. I think there might be a clog in the gutter. Whoa! He's on a ladder. There we go. So that's why we got water pouring in. Holy shit. I think it might have been coming in the air conditioner. Alright, now I completely lost my train of thought. Looked like someone had the bathwater pouring over the window. Jeez. Oh, if you're my pain point every single week, I'm going to give you a little bit of slack, but that can't happen every week. My only pain point every week is my kid. She's the only one that is allowed at least partial leeway. And I'm no softy on her either. A couple days where you create a pain in the ass for mom for the same thing over and over, I'm going to make certain that I've shown you 5 times, and now I'm taking off the training wheels. You're going to do it yourself. And now it's going to become a part of your routine every day when you get home that's got to get done. That's called being a good motivator. I don't know. Anyway, I'm totally lost now. What I was talking about was the fact that those guys got it. We all know that this is bullshit. This immigration thing with these tens of thousands of children being sent here that now we as a nation are responsible for. I don't know how I feel about that. Especially sending to New York. New York is one of the 2 biggest welfare states. Did you know that? You can come to New York ready to pop with a kid and get across the border and change your residence here, and everything's paid for. I think it's the same way in California. And here's the thing. We are also the 2 states who pay the most tax. All the businesses get run out of New York and California. Maybe not California as much, not to New York because of their rules and their taxes. Businesses and people leave here. It is very expensive. And it is because we are loaded with social programs and $100,000 a year plow drivers. So the fact that New York was the first on the list, they're going to ship all these undocumented kids. As a mom, I'm kind of torn between being a mom and being a taxpayer. I'm like, hey, I don't want to be paying for some Colombian freaking kid's education. I donate money every week to all kinds of different causes that I believe in. Unfortunately, Ecuadorian children is not on the list, but hey, could be. But I also donate every minute of my waking time just about to humanity, if that's what you call what I'm doing here. I just don't know. Isn't there another solution? Why do we, it's like, I'm a person who takes in stray cats, okay? So this is kind of the same thing. Not that we're equating children to stray cats, but in concept it is. I have a friend who does this too, and my sister. And we've all at some point ended up in the same situation. You feed one stray cat, and the next thing you know, you have 5 stray cats. And those 5 stray cats are so cute. And then you have a 6th stray cat that shows up, and she's pregnant. So before you know, you have 12 stray cats, all cute little fuzzy kittens running around, and now you got to get 6 of them fixed. And if you don't put the money and the time and the effort in to get them fixed, you're going to have 20 stray cats, and then you're going, shit, what do I do? Now I'm getting overrun with stray cats. And I mean, I love them. I'm not taking them to the pound to have them gassed, but I can't find homes for them all, and I can't send them back because there's nowhere to go back to. What do I do with all these cats? And it's like, you touch it, you own it, and now you are guilted into taking care of these cats. It's the same thing. We fed a few, and now they're just shipping them wave by wave by wave by wave over here for a better life. Like I said, if I were a parent on the other side of the fence, I might consider it. But I don't know what parent with any good conscience could send their kid into the unknown alone at like 5. And maybe if things were really, really super desperate, it might be different. But sitting in this seat, I couldn't do that. I would never forgive myself. You'd never know if your kid were dead or alive. So I don't even want to get on this issue, and I don't know how I got here, but I just wonder if this isn't part of a bigger agenda. This allowing in without documentation, I have friends that live down near the border. Just so you know, they're telling me, and Gringo and that, you guys are all down there. Maybe you can share an opinion. They're telling me that this border story is a bunch of bullshit, actually. That the Border Patrol is not overrun, and that they're not having major problems. I mean, I don't know. I'm not down there. From the news that I'm hearing, sure sounds like we have people pounding at the doors, and our guys are just overwhelmed and overrun. And makes me wonder, with all this technology and all these MRAPs we're giving the cops. I mean, look, we got New Mexico, we got Arizona, we got Texas. They've all come up with issues over the last year or two. They all got the gear, they all got the cameras, they all got the drones. If there's such a border problem, why aren't you enabling any of that stuff? Taxpayer-funded equipment at your border. Or your new surveillance drones. Where's that? I don't know. I just think that by adding all of these other people and the confusion at the border to the mix, it's just going to discombobulate things even more for whatever they're working on. And this is why I was talking about this, because this is the elephant in the room, people, I think. Now, we talked about this about a month ago, and I said absolutely bullshit. After they had all of these announcements about unprecedented explosion in Ebola cases in Africa, and then supposedly the tests weren't working because it was a new strain, and all those people got off the plane because it made it to a city with an international airport. They got off the plane in Italy and have been running around Italy, and then they're like, uh-oh. Next thing you know, there's a story that comes out that says, hey, it's all under control. And you know what? It's all so under control that we are not even counting cases of Ebola anymore. And that was that. They made MERS a big deal to kind of distract you because Americans are really dumb. They don't know the difference between Ebola and MERS. So maybe if we make MERS a headline, they'll completely forget about the Ebola. They won't, don't worry about it, Clyde. They won't even realize that it's a different disease. That fluoride worked. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. That one other person, besides me, that I heard was saying what the hell happened to the unprecedented Ebola outbreak. Well, lo and behold, here we go. You knew this was coming back again and had to percolate because it wasn't quite ready.
Well, what we're seeing right now is more of what we saw at the beginning of the outbreak. When things started back in March, there was extension across the border into Sierra Leone. There were cases in Liberia. The outbreak moved to Conakry and got everyone quite excited then. And gradually these satellite outbreaks were contained and things moved back just to the central outbreak. And now we're seeing the same thing again. It's moved into Sierra Leone. It's moved into Liberia. So this is a bit more of what we saw before, but it's not different in character. just different in the amount of what we're seeing.
Well, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that judgment, because one of your colleagues is being quoted by the Associated Press as saying it's totally out of control. That's a terrifying remark.
It is. I would say rather that it is not yet under control. We managed to control some of the earlier satellite outbreaks. We've had new ones. These are going to get brought under control. But it is a difficulty for us because it requires a lot of resources to do this. We only have so many people, and an Ebola outbreak control intervention is a big deal even for a small one, and when you multiply it several times over, that requires a lot of people and resources. So we're stretched thin, and we could use some help from the national governments of the countries involved. But we will.
I'm going to interrupt. I don't want to be alarmist, but I'm wondering how much alarm is appropriate. Some people are describing this as the worst outbreak ever.
Well, it's certainly the largest. Extension is, geographically has been impressive, and it's been going on for about 3 months now, which is certainly longer than we would have expected, and it will probably continue for a while. So this will be the largest outbreak on record. I don't know that makes it terrifying for people who don't live in West Africa, but it is certainly an impressively large outbreak.
Why is it larger this time?
Well, the thing that's different this time is the mobility of the people involved. Ebola is spread through close social contacts, which means that if it stays within a geographically limited area, the number of people that you come into contact with that will attend your funeral or take care of you is reasonably small. These people move about a lot, so that when they become exposed to Ebola in one location and then move 50, 100, 150, 600 kilometers somewhere else, and then become sick there, then we have to deal with a whole new satellite outbreak over there. And this population in West Africa, they move around a lot. They move bodies after they've died to be buried in another town, and this has caused a certain amount of problem.
So what needs to be done?
Well, we have to try even harder to engage the population in outbreak control. They are very scared by the outbreak. They have their own beliefs, and they tend to hide when we come and look for cases of Ebola. They don't trust that we're going to take care of them. They think that we are there to make matters worse at times. And
yeah, like Bill Gates showing up with guns and vaccines in Africa. I'm sure that really helped get them to trust you back in the day, too. There's just a little bit more. What's horrifying about this is I know this guy sounds cool as a cucumber, but are you hearing what he's saying? This is unprecedented, ever. And something they didn't mention in this clip, but they've mentioned before, this whole new strain. There is no vaccine. There is no treatment. There is no antibiotic. And it is 90% fatal if you get it. So here's the way I look at it. Africa, the conditions are just absolutely wonderful to be a real-time open-air petri dish for percolation. And he's right. People do move around a lot. In Africa, they move around a lot, and they move around a lot out of international airports. And that was the big deal before, is that it had made it to a city, and I don't remember which African city it was. It was on the southwestern coast of Africa the last time that they were concerned, but it had made it to a city with an international airport. And after people had gotten on the plane and left for the mainland, they discovered that the Ebola that they had been testing for was not the strain that people were infected with. There was a newer strain. And that's the horrifying part. There were a few stories out there that had actually given some estimates, with the incubation period being a few weeks long on Ebola, what it would take for there to be a massive pandemic globally, from the mothership, day one. And it wasn't a very long time, I'll tell you. I think within 6 weeks, just about every major city on the planet could have pandemic cases of this. I'm very concerned about stuff like this. And you guys might say, Jules, there's so many other whacked out things going on. What makes you think it's this? Well, anyone who's been listening for a while knows that I did take some of those special FEMA trainings back quite a number of years ago, And pandemic was the one thing that they trained us on. Anthrax specifically, and handing out meds for that, bioterror attack, that type of thing. We have our pandemic headquarters set up here in my little rinky-dink town, as they do in almost every town across the USA. So be aware of that. That is something that goes back quite a number of years since they've been saying that, you know, all these terrorists crossing the borders dressed as Mexicans, too. Do you guys remember that? Because that's something else they told us about in that class. The terrorists are coming across the border dressed as Mexicans with suitcase nukes. They told us that in the FEMA class. And so we were concerned that they are going to stage attacks in all of our major cities. Two big things. That and the pandemic. So we see all these illegals now. Oh, the borders are open. Oh, we can't contain it. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And this unprecedented, out of control Ebola spreading everywhere. Guys, I'm just getting spidey senses. And the fact that federal classes that I took actually talked about these things. We were taught to extricate people out of blown up buildings. I don't know. It weighs a little bit heavier on me than it may others, because I have all of the training material. I have the command and control diagrams showing us how we're all going to work it out when all society breaks down. And we got emergency management here to try to help us. So it worries me. All right, I'm going to play the very end of this.
And we have to engage their trust so that they will collaborate and become partners in outbreak control. As well, we have to find a way to communicate better. When people move about, we have to find a way to make sure that we can keep track of them when they move from town to town. One of the important things you do in an Ebola outbreak is keep track of the people who are in contact with someone who is sick. And when these people are moving about left and right, it makes it difficult to contain the outbreak. And communication will help with that as well.
Oh, or you know what? Maybe an RFID tracking chip would help. That would actually be a good idea. Think about it. If containment is an issue, and I mean that's in Africa right now, but hey, how about when it's here? Or how about once it gets onto a plane and spreads internationally? We're going to need to track people who are infected. Well, that would be a good reason to make them all get the chip now, wouldn't it? Got to scan your chip at the airport gate and make sure that you have not been infected with something, or if something that we don't want spreading beyond your FEMA region. I don't know. My brain is just spinning, but I have some things that I've seen that really dots start connecting, and I'm like, man, that would be the perfect crime now, wouldn't it? From their perspective. All right, there's a few more. I think we got enough. I just want everyone to be aware that Ebola outbreak is not under control. And I said that in the very beginning. I cried bullshit. How could it possibly be when there is no cure? Containment maybe, but not under control, and now it's spreading all over. Now, a few things we're going to look at, though. So there's this going on. They got so many fun things percolating everywhere, but I still think we're going to see some wacky shit. They are coming after our youths now. Now, a few things that we've seen over the last 6 months or so are some pretty horrifying cases with them arresting children and putting them and booking them into adult facilities, right? We've seen that quite a number of times. This most recent one, when we had the Shadow Man thing, there's the two 12-year-olds that plotted to kill their friends. I mean, that was all premeditated, which was pretty frightening. But we also had that case of the 10-year-old and the sprinkler, and I don't know if we ever played that on air. I posted that actually on Nick's site. And I remember we discussed it in chat, but I don't know if I ever talked about that one on air. There were two girls at a school. They were 8 or 10. I think she was 10. And she had been bullying another girl, and there's all the zero tolerance bullshit. And by the way, we were talking about the whole bully thing this weekend too, so I'll bring that up. But she was bullying another girl, and I guess I don't think there were any blows thrown or anything, but whatever happened, so the little girl that was getting bullied blew her in, and the mom went to the police. The girl that was doing the bullying is at home, and now it was like a Friday, in her bathing suit, playing in the sprinkler in her front yard. This was in Oregon. The cops handcuffed her, booked her, and put her in an adult jail. Now, what on earth is that? How is that going to affect that child into adulthood? Again, doing these things to kids. Here's one thing that maybe we don't think about as much if we don't have them or if we're just not paying attention. But always remember, everything that happens to a kid, in some way, shape, or form affects them in their development to an adult. And when you start rattling their faith in ones that they thought protected them, especially like police. And hey, I'm not saying that she should have the false belief that the police are going to protect her, because they're not. But when a 10-year-old gets hauled off to an adult jail and fingerprinted and booked, you better believe that kid's going to be messed up now. I mean, there were a few interviews, and the one with the mother said that it was just so embarrassing and so horrible. They had to move. They had to move and go to a new school district. But what all of these cases, I mean, how many kids have been suspended for bubble guns or Pop-Tart guns or finger guns, forefinger and thumb? Didn't some kid get suspended for saying pew, pew, pew? As they bring this police state down on our kids and teach them what a thug is, apparently, is what they're doing. And then we have the internet, and it's like anything goes there. You can blame the parents all you want, and I have. But I'm going to tell you what, this content that's coming out, these games that are coming out, this website, things like Disney even, or what's some of the other ones? The ones that are geared specifically toward kids. Like it's all this media is messing our kids up. I try to restrict as much of it as I can, because they're mixing in sexuality with 10-year-olds. It's just not right. You don't need a 10-year-old thinking about sex or drugs. That shouldn't ever even come into the picture. Your 10-year-old should be thinking about how to identify leaves on the different trees, how to go fishing, maybe, a project on conservation. I do still believe that the world's messed up and we need to know how to conserve things and not leave a huge footprint. But appreciation for the world around you is what a 10-year-old should be learning. Not how to dodge law enforcement and do underhanded things because you're being watched and manipulated. So a lot of this craziness that now they're pointing to in the internet, these jihadi sites that are radicalizing youth. Just the fact that you're doing a story on jihadi websites radicalizing youth, they're going to send all kinds of people out there. You remember when, not Bergdahl, the other guy, Alaki was killed. And they had his terrorist group, and I don't even remember which one it was, and I don't care, honestly. But they had the story from CNN about, they had this new glossy magazine for Al-Qaeda. And if you go out to this website, they show you how to make homemade bombs out of the kitchen. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, and do you know how many millions of people now went out there and downloaded that glossy manual on how to make bombs out of your mom's kitchenware. You know, they're creating this and then they're directing this. And the same thing is happening, like I said, with these Disney sites and whatever. They are manipulating our children, and we are freely putting our children out there to be consumed. By sitting them in front of a computer, sitting them in front of a TV, it's like we're handing them to the wolves. Their brains and their minds are these soft, malleable objects that are like sponges. And I am very directed in what I teach my kid. And, you know, we argue because she does play a few video games. My husband lets her play some things on the iPad, and I get annoyed and make comments to her about, oh, I see you sitting there drooling again. She's like, I'm not drooling. Like, well, you will be if you stay in front of that computer. You know, like things that your mom would say. But as I watch the psychological manipulation that is going on across the board, and it's just not our children, this is the grand mind fuck, people. This is one of the big things we were talking about this weekend. It's all a lie. All of it. And we've all been sucked in. And I don't know if all of us see all of it. I don't think I even see all of it. I see little pieces of the puzzle when the glass starts to crack on the two-way mirror. And I'm like, I see you now. Oh, there's another piece of the puzzle. But I know we don't see it all. But we need to protect ourselves. Now, you guys have heard me talk about all this crazy technology coming out of DARPA. And we know the next frontier is the manipulation and control of the brain. The control of your thoughts. The implantation of thoughts. The control of your actions, pre-crime. Military, robot people with superhuman strength. And that's not fantasy stuff anymore. That's all real stuff that they're working on. So we know that they are working on that, and that stuff is going to be used against us because it will not be for our benefit. They'll say, oh, all you poor soldiers coming back with PTSD and memory lapses who can't get an appointment at the VA, and oh, even though you've been dead, we're adding you back to the list because we don't want anyone to know how many people we actually let die and didn't give health care. You better know that you really are just the guinea pig. They're not doing this because they give two shits about you. You're the guinea pig to get it all tested before they can roll it out in the commercial space. Once they roll it out in the commercial space, they're going to be making bank on their good old Obamacare. Again, just like the VA, there's going to be all kinds of death waiting lists. You just wait and see. And you and I and our kids are going to get to be the guinea pigs. Even broader spectrum than just the military. And once that is all perfected and we can't sue these pharmaceutical robot companies because that's just the way it is for all the malpractice, and they got it all working perfect, then the elite will take Generation 3, not Generation 1. Something I learned in software, never ever install Generation 1. They'll be getting Generation 3 when it's all perfect. And all they got to do is plug in the chip. It will be over at that point. So, I don't know. I kind of got off on a tangent there. But your brain. You know, we always joke about wearing tinfoil hats, people. I think it's almost time. I really do. I think they're coming for our minds. They've already been coming for our minds. It's all a big mind fuck. But I mean, now they're going to get all invasive. Get up in there! Nobody's getting up in there on me! You know, I really want, cutting out the TV, help them get out of there. And I still, to this day, like if I go to my parents and my mother just has the TV on, drone, I'm like, oh, I cannot stand listening to commercials. It makes you want to start punching things. And it's always so obnoxious and just yelling things at you. Blah, 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 blah. I just can't stand it. And that's supposed to do something for me? No, it makes me want to go and yell at your business. All right, so anyway, on the guise that this is all a big mind F, yes, some of the more current things now coming out are all of these psychiatrists and psychologists talking about radicalization and what creates it. And we have veterans in this country that now are being accused of being radicalized. We have children in this country that are accused of being radicalized. We have the internet being pointed out as the tool of radicalization. And then we have all this mental illness apparently out there to go along with the firearms. I mean, I actually saw the Truther Girls, the Verstein and April. I don't know if they were listening, or I might have even posted. I might have posted something once for them. But I think they put some of my dots together. I saw them post an interview with Dr. Yolanda Lucier. She is the forensic psychiatrist out of Australia who did the DNA testing to discover that all those people with no violent tendencies that ended up in prison for killing someone all happened to be on SSRIs. And when she had them do DNA swabs, she discovered that every single one of those individuals had a suppressed cytochrome P450 enzyme. And, then we found a scientific publication a few months back that then showed glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, actually caused the suppression of the cytochrome P450 enzyme. So, ergo, eating your GMO foods, and actually there was just one, if you look at what the actual suppression of that CYP450 enzyme does, it is every single Western disease just about that they say we have. Diabetes and overweight and, this metabolic syndrome and cancers and all this other crap, they are all attributed to ingestion of glyphosate and the suppression of the cytochrome P450 enzyme. So, all right, what does that mean? That means feed your kid GMO food, and they get ADD and depression. So we take them to the doctor, and they put them on antidepressants. And the big equal sign in the room, antidepressants and suppressed cytochrome P450 enzymes equals violence. No doubt about it. It equals violence. You want to know where all these school shootings are coming from, and all these 12-year-olds plotting to kill their friends from Shadow Man? I'm going to tell you, it's the food and the drugs. And their lovely combination is what is turning our kids into criminals. Our family members into criminals and murderers. It's not the guns. It's not the internet. It's the pharmaceutical companies and Monsanto is who's doing it. No doubt about it. Documented proof. 100%. Now, why there aren't stories all over the front pages talking about this connection, I don't know. I'm going to make that happen. Actually, Brandon, if you're listening, I'm going to tell you again, you got to do an update. He wrote a story a couple years ago. He was the one that introduced us to Dr. Lucier. Dr. Lucier had done all the research on the violence on people who had been incarcerated. She was a clinical or a forensic psychiatrist for the prison system, and was investigating why these people who never, ever, ever had any violence at all in their background, how they could snap like that. And that's what she discovered. And then they put her out of practice. And the pharmaceutical companies came after her. So, now that we know it's the bastards that have set this all up, now let the propaganda begin. So here we go. Why do Western youth choose jihad?
We all see this social media video online of crucifixions and beheadings and that kind of thing. And we ask ourselves, how is it possible that someone who really has something to live for in a Western country would choose to join those groups instead? Let's better understand this radicalization. And I turn now to my guest, Haris Rafiq. He's with the counter-extremism think tank, Quilliam, here in London. Thanks for being with us. So how do you explain it? Some of these kids, come from Muslim families. Their parents are secular. They play Xbox. They have iPhones. They have friends. Some of them have jobs. And yet somehow something or a group is able to brainwash them enough to get them to fly halfway around the world and blow themselves up at an army checkpoint. It boggles the mind.
I know, it does. It's actually quite mind-blowing, really. But if we look at the causes of radicalization, quite often what happens is that many young individuals actually have some form of perceived or actual vulnerability, some personal crisis. And what these recruiters do, they actually take this personal crisis, create a prism and guide them through one of four pathways. So actually say the solution to your problems, be it belonging to a gang, be it belonging to a group, whatever it is going to take you down one of these four particular routes. The first one is the theological reading of scriptures to say that, you know what, the narrow Salafist jihadi scripture is the only way that you can be a Muslim. Another way is to say, the West is at war with Islam, you've got to fight back, you've got to create a caliphate. Then we have some people with personal traumas, a personal loss. And finally, there genuinely are people with some mental health problems.
Right. And I was going to say that. I mean, how many of these individuals, because you would think that somebody who's all there in their minds wouldn't be seduced by this, that they might act out a little bit. All teenagers and young men and women in their early 20s might have the odd thing. They take a gap year, they do stupid things. Sure. But very few will end up in Syria with a suicide vest on them.
Well, and let's stop here, because she's absolutely right. A lot of us probably wouldn't fall for it, except there's all this sophisticated mind F going on. And you heard him say at the very beginning, these are kids that got iPads and Xboxes. But yes, they're brainwashing them. Think about it. I've said it before, and I'm still going to say it, all about this desensitization to violence. And the first time that I saw a video game skewed on our system as the vendor of Department of Defense. Remember, there's a huge agenda here. And that is to take us all down and to lock everything down. But we have to have mass chaos first. I'm glad that they're bringing it up, but she's like so flabbergasted as to how this could happen. Yeah, we were all rebellious in our teens and early 20s. I know I sure as hell was. I don't think I ever felt the need to go hop on a plane to another country and blow myself up. But you know what? Guess what? Video games weren't like that then. There was still violence in the world, but we did not have all the sophistication and the connections that we do now to be able to manipulate to the scale that we do now. We had Walter Cronkite was telling us like it was back in those days. All right, hold on.
They're using, if you look at Baghdadi now, the head of ISIS, he's probably the richest terrorist ever. He has $2 billion worth of assets.
And a social media strategy.
And a social media. Well, this is welcome to 21st century jihad. Mm-hmm. What we've got now is an organisation that actually is winning battles, and they believe that God is on their side, and they're working with the efficiency of a corporate entity. They're produced.
Yeah, so I guess now if you are good at social media and you got a website and you know how to promote yourself, you could be a jihadist.
Reports, they're going on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and they're actually getting out to these youngsters in a method that they actually are willing to receive, and it's powerful.
So these youngsters, are they groomed in the way you would groom somebody to sign up to sort of become a member of a cult? Yeah, is it kind of the same process?
But absolutely, very similar. People talk about online radicalization. Yes, we've just recently done a report called Jihad Trending. We've analysed 30 jihadi websites. There were two things we want to debunk. First of all, there is no such thing as lone wolf terrorism. Mm-hmm. Anybody who is actually radicalised on the net has to have some form of personal contact with some charismatic recruiter. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that actually banning and prescribing these organizations or these websites on their own doesn't work. We need to have some sort of social activism and counter-narrative.
So what people who live in the UK or in the US, I mean, we saw it with the Boston bombings, for instance, those two kids were radicalized online, it seemed like. So should there be concern now with all that's going on in Syria and Iraq that some of these young men will return with these ideas that they need to attack Western targets?
Absolutely. These guys are being taught that their only way that they can be Muslims is to fight everybody else. The only way they can be Muslims is to create a caliphate. The only way they can be Muslims is to fight anybody who's different from them. Now, if you look at Baghdadi now, this is a group, ISIS, that's far too extreme for Al-Qaeda. These guys...
And that's saying something.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, who knows? In 10 years' time, we might be saying Al-Qaeda is a moderate Islamist organization.
Right.
This guy wants to make a statement. He has 2,000 European fighters, 2,000 European jihadis who will come back.
I was going to say savagery is part of the strategy right there as well. But so last question, if your people who live in Europe and in other Western countries should be concerned, what should be done then at a government level, at a community level even? Okay. To try to contain this.
Okay, first of all, at the government level, we have to stop dealing with people once they've become radicalized. We need to get the bigger picture and actually tackle people, build resilience within the community before people become violent so that there is some resilience. On a social level, we need more positive social activism to actually get the counter-narratives out to people. And that's not just a job for British Muslim communities, it's actually a job for the communities at large. And it's only when we actually all come together and take this struggle on that we're actually going to make a difference.
Right. You need these young men to feel like they're part of the wider sort of community and not just susceptible to this type of recruitment.
Yeah, we need to make sure that they don't have a vacuum of ideas so that when these recruiters come at them with ideas, they can push back. And that's what's missing at the moment.
So we need to indoctrinate our kids and teach them that the internet is bad and that they can be radicalized by ideas. That's what I heard. I mean, I don't know anything about these online recruiters, and are these kids that religious? I mean, I know if you look across the board, religion, at least in the United States, has tended to fall off from a generation or two ago. You don't see a lot of religion, at least in America, anymore like you used to. I mean, it's still there, but it's not a part of family values anymore, which I think that was kind of where it was central to the family. It helped establish, and I'm not for organized religion, please, at all. But, that is a tough question. As religion fell out in society's favor, we tended to lose a moral fabric. You tended to lose the threat of the big guy in the sky, damning you to eternal damnation if you did something bad. The family unit fell apart. And morals, and I think across the board, not just in this country, I think all over the world, morals are just out a window now. Anything goes. Dinah's talked about it many times. She and I had a very long conversation one time about the 7 deadly sins from medieval literature. We got them all. That's what's running the world now, is instant gratification and self-satisfaction. That's what it's about. It's not about caring for your neighbor or taking care of the planet or in general, let's say. More of the collective consciousness. In this world, people have been groomed to consume. Right? Consume and obey. That's the way it works. Not be self-sufficient and take care of yourself and have independent thought. Consume and obey. So as they're ramping this all up, now we know a few weeks ago, Holder reinstated the Domestic Terror Division of Homeland Security. So that's kicking full tilt here, I'm sure. I'm sure that they started all of that long before they announced they were opening it up again. Something I saw in some of my DARPA searches that come out daily that I thought was pretty whacked out, and I'm sure it'll be coming soon, and all the more reason to get all of our children on video games so they could be good little soldiers in the future. those Oculus Rift goggles that Google was putting out, the 3D virtual reality, they are going to be using for the military. And at first I was like, well, on the battlefield, I don't know if I'd want to be wearing those. But check this out. You know, they've been yelling about terror, cyber attack terror for a long time. And even when Manet Napolitano was in office, they were talking about attacks on our SCADA systems and the power grid, and how dangerous it is, and they can hack cars and do all this stuff, and they can. You know, something that you want that secure probably should not have a direct connect to the internet. As a network engineer, I'll give you some advice. But there are other ways, even if you don't have a connect, like they found with that flame, or what was the other, the virus infection that got into the nuclear reactor in Iran and stuff. That actually they think came on a flash drive. You know, flash drives are like not using a condom. Just be aware of that too. So, you know, don't dip it if you don't want to take the risk. That's for certain. So, you know, they've been warning about these cyber attacks, and I mean, we've watched this all ramp up. Cyber attacks are akin to declarations of war. That was kind of where it came from. Now, I just saw something the other day in England, I believe. They are proposing life in prison for hackers, just so you know. That to me just seems way over and above necessary in my mind's eye. Especially when you look back to the 80s with, what was the movie where they hacked into the facility with all the nukes, right? And they simulated the nuclear war with Russia. I mean, back from those days, and that was some kid. They did a movie about it. He wasn't, like, put in prison for life and tortured in a Guantanamo-esque facility. But today, you're curious and you do a little hacking that could put you life in prison because you're a terrorist. And if you're in this country, you're a domestic terrorist. And, you've declared war now. I mean, come on. This is just so freaking out of proportion. So these Oculus Rift goggles, I'm reading the other day. Now, they have this program going on. Now, Keith Alexander, when he stepped down, he retired from the head of the NSA. We spent a couple days looking at Keith Alexander and all of the facets of the NSA that were underneath him, and we discovered that it is massive. That every military branch has their own cyber patrol, and they're all working in unison under the NSA, which I believe was working right under the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So they're pretty big shit. I mean, these are all special forces online stuff. And they're having a lot of trouble getting hackers to come to their side. So I've seen a few recruiting events. I've seen Alexander coming out trying to be the warm and fuzzy Alexander now. You know, hey. We also have seen through some hacker cases now that it is out there right up front that a lot of times these hackers go to work for the alphabet agencies because it's part of a plea deal. We won't send you to life in prison and torture you and ruin your family and your life and take everything you own if you give up others in your organization and you help us bait them. Kind of like we do in the ATF stings that now judges rule are all orchestrated. We're going to give you the means, and we're going to give you the tools, and you just find us the people, and you suck them into the honey trap. You know, I've been warning you guys about this, because don't think that it's just in the hacker world. Everybody needs to keep their eyes open. They announced a few weeks ago that they are infiltrating every group. Every group. You know, and that's another reason why I'm looking at this. I don't need this shit. You know, my life was perfectly happy long before I started doing this radio stuff. I wasn't happy about things, but I got a life. I don't need any freaking crazy showing up at my door or someone kicking it in or hauling me off to prison because I opened my mouth and said what a crock of bullshit this is. Because we had some infiltrator come in here and set people up because they're too dumb to see it. Don't be one of the dumb people. It happens. A few of us have seen it happen in other organizations, and actually I've seen it happen in a few. I've been digging through some stuff, and I found a bunch of dots now that connect back to one central location that I see may be infecting my network. There's going to be some extrication going on here shortly. Don't fall for it. It's all a big mind F. So all this comes around, and now we're all radicalized because of that pesky internet. We're all drugged up. We all have violent tendencies. Our children are all warped. And our tax dollars are now being used in a great place. That pesky social media has just brought us all together and exposed. Oh, what? It exposed all the bad things you were doing. Oh, no, it radicalized you is what it did.
The U.S. Department of Defense has teamed with universities and social science researchers to study the dynamics of civil unrest, both abroad and here at home. It's being called the Minerva Research Initiative. Many scientists, educators, and activists, though, fear that the initiative could not only lead to the militarization of the study of social sciences, but that the information gained from the research could be used by the military to control and stifle ideological and grassroots-driven movements like Occupy Wall Street. To shed some light on the Minerva Initiative, I was joined earlier by David Price, a professor of anthropology and sociology at St. Martin's University. I first asked him how the initiative works and what the military hopes to gain from it.
Well, as you said, the Minerva Initiative started in 2008. It started with very modest funding, around $4 million. It was announced by then Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, with the idea being that the Defense Department would try and use social scientists and other academics in American universities to research issues and problems that were of interest to the military. And when it started, it was very broad. But as you said in your introduction, right now it appears that many of the programs that are being funded try to model ways for the Defense Department to monitor civil unrest. And so they're studying both domestic populations and more generally looking at groups around the world trying to use social science for militarized ends.
Now, how does the military and intelligence agencies use the information that's being gained from working with the social scientists and anthropologists like yourself? Is it something that they're looking into as far as behavior is concerned as large groups?
Well, there are several answers to that. One is we simply don't know how the information's being used. As with any sort of social science research.
But how come you guys don't know, Professor?
Well, because I'm not involved in. I don't work for Minerva. I'm a critic of Minerva, and so. But anyone who's doing research puts it out in the public domain, and it can be used for ends that we, the researchers, don't understand. Now, with Minerva, the results. There's two parts of Minerva. One is a program where people come up with research designs that they want to do, and it goes through a very public process using the National Science Foundation. The other is not public. It uses a classified process. So there are scholars out there that are doing work where they're doing things like analyzing texts. So they'll take one of the funded programs is they took seized documents from Iraq, from the invasion of Iraq, that were taken back, and then they use very sophisticated programs. There are programs like, there's one called Nudist, which is a qualitative analytical software package that social scientists can use to look for themes that show up in documents.
I'm going to stop for a second, because if you're listening to what this guy is saying, anyone who's been a listener to the show for any length of time has heard me probably a year and a half ago talking about these DARPA programs that were going on. I mean, I found these on the FBO.gov, and what they were doing back then was looking for software developers to write them artificial intelligence applications that would be able to go out to all kinds of social media, not just Facebook and Twitter, but all the chats, your emails, and start scraping them, raw text, and gaining intelligence from them, and not just intelligence, but trying to figure out vernacular, trying to figure out slang, trying to figure out keywords that led from one event to another so they could do predictive research when doing their keyword searches, right? And we know that they do that already. How many times in the past have we had it, and it hasn't been happening lately, so maybe they've tuned their tools a little, but back in the early days when we were doing radio, every time you said the B word, we got knocked off air, crazy stuff happened, and it was like it launched some sort of counterattack against us because it identified one of those keywords that put you on a list. Well, it's gone way beyond that now. They are fully admitting that they have their hands on all this data. They're now giving it to the universities. Of course, all these universities are financed by DARPA dollars. We've looked at all that. And they're turning it against us. They're turning it against us to try to figure out what our next moves are going to be. Now, I also heard him mention the National Science Foundation, which is a public side. But if you look at the entities that are involved in this big brain project, National Science Foundation is one of the top of the crown. So don't think that any of this is being used for good at all. It is being used to put all of us in a cage. It is being used to make all of us criminals. It is being used to figure out how to attack us and how to infiltrate whatever we have left. We're going to talk about, when this is done, I want to talk about that Oculus Rift tool because I couldn't even believe what I was reading. So here, another minute or so.
And so, in terms of what it's being applied for, we don't know because all of this occurs behind a wall of secrecy.
So do you think that the professors that are involved in the Minerva project, do they even know what they're involved with or why this information is useful to them?
Yes and no. They, on the one hand, it's one of these sort of dual use things. On the one hand, the scholars working on these projects are working on issues that are very interesting to them as individuals. I don't think they're necessarily thinking through the applications of this in terms of counterinsurgency and other applications, or perhaps they are and they're politically comfortable with having their research being used for these sort of manipulative ends. I don't really know. I think there's a lot of naivete, not really understanding the history of abuses of programs like this.
I think he's correct.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. That was David Price, a professor of anthropology at St. Martin's University.
Smart dude. He's absolutely right. I mean, there are so many of these people at the university level that are being funded right now. And especially, I mean, we've talked about this before when we've been on with just this DARPA robotics project, that they're getting all these college engineers to build them all these crazy robots as part of a fun competition. But these kids don't realize that they are being duped. They're being used, and their creations are going to be used to kill people and to enslave people. That's the end result. And so, I was there at academic, funness, and you got all this time to research and work on things and come up with all these great new ideas. And yeah, there's a lot to that, but pay attention to who the paycheck comes from and who is taking your research and where they are putting it, because this is going to be turned against all of us. So these researchers who think that they're doing all this greatness, don't think that your emails and chats and whatever are going to be immune from them scraping to figure out how radicalized you are. So I can't believe already there's only 20 minutes left. All right, so we're going to go a little bit further here. I want to talk about this Oculus Rift thing now. So I've seen for a while that DARPA was toying with this Google 3D virtual reality goggle thing that they were developing. And like I said, we had Manit Napolitano and then Keith Alexander really kind of pump up the attacks and using the cyber world to attack the homeland. Well, once they established cyber patrols within all of the military divisions, then they tried to recruit, and they're having all kinds of problems to recruit. And like I said, the only ones really that they've been able to recruit are the ones that they've already caught, and they can use it as part of a bargaining chip to then have them dangle carrots and pull their friends in. So they got a problem. They got a problem because hackers, too, tend not to be establishment. Hackers tend not to want to follow a general giving them directions, okay? And a hacker is probably not the best candidate for a military establishment at all. If I were a general, I probably wouldn't want a hacker. Hackers like, independence and anarchy. They definitely do not want me coming down on them telling them what to do. They also had the little problem recently that they said most hackers smoke pot, so they weren't sure how they were going to work that out for alphabet agencies and getting hackers to come join the Cyber Patrol team. But here's what they discovered. They discovered that these soldiers, one thing that soldiers know how to do is to be soldiers, is to blow things up. That's what they've been trained for. So somebody came up with a really bright idea. And I got to say, if it weren't so horrifying, I'd be like, wow, that's a great idea. At least from a technological perspective and a user interface. But as the potential targets of such a technology, I don't think it's a good thing at all, because it makes it dumb end user friendly and allows them to attack us so much more easily. Basically what they're doing is they have some smart cookies that are doing some coding. And what these smart cookies have done is made a specialized gaming interface using these Oculus Rift goggles. So, all right, the military has declared that the internet is a battlefield. And a cyber attack is akin to a declaration of war. We actually heard in that Wired interview that I spent 3 days reading, Keith Alexander saying that they will come after us, and they have all kinds of tools that could do damage and even kill online. And I still haven't figured out how they're doing that. Though, how hard would it be to send some sort of zap through the system or use your metadata to drop a drone bomb on you, right? I mean, we discovered that is what they were using, the metadata that they said wasn't important on your cell phone for. Well, what they've done with these Oculus Rift goggles is they've had a programmer now take the user interface, and instead of being a programmer and sending, or a hacker, seeing an attack and then mounting a counter attack in code, mind you, so launching a denial of service or whatever, you don't need to be a programmer to do that anymore. So now you're a soldier, and you're in Cyber Patrol, and they put on the goggles, and you probably got the 3D gloves with all the leads on them, made out of some sort of nanocarbon fibers. You got your Wii pistol, and you got a couple grenade launchers from Wii, or whatever, Federale gaming system. And while you're in these goggles, you see the little robber trying to break into, the Federal Reserve. But it's like a video game. So you're not watching intrusion, real-time in code happening, attacking an IP address, let's say, as you're in the event log. You're actually watching a graphical interface with a building that looks like the Federal Reserve and some little crook trying to crack the door open with a tire iron. Just like a game. And so what do you do, Mr. Oculus Rift, with your Wii firearm and your launch grenades? You do what you do best. You lift your firearm, you aim, and you shoot at the robber who's trying to break into the Federal Reserve with his crowbar. And what that does on the backside is it creates you a cyber attack that turns around and attacks the target. And they're working on all kinds of stuff like that now. So they don't need armies of hackers anymore. They just need armies of soldiers who know how to use the internet and video games. And they're going to write the application that you don't even know what you're doing to these people. You could be sending a pulse that blows up and kills people for all you know. But all you're doing is just swinging your arms and pretending to shoot. Now tell me if that is not absolutely messed up. And I've talked a lot about this blending between reality and fantasy, and I think that that's what a lot of this television over the last 20 or 30 years and the games have done. They have removed the sense of personal responsibility. Look at these drone pilots who aren't drone pilots. They're playing a video game sitting in a facility somewhere in Utah, watching a screen, killing 20 people at a crack. Well, I don't know. I have a lot of friends who came back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm going to tell you that if you stood there and were ambushed by 20 children with bombs strapped to their chests, and the only way to save your battalion was to gun them all down, versus sitting in a room, seeing a group of 20 jihadists with bombs strapped to their chests, and you just hit a button and drop a drone bomb on them, I'm going to tell you what, the guy who was there that had to gun down all the kids face to face is going to have some serious PTSD. And he probably will never get over that. The guy who pushed the button in the facility in Utah probably isn't going to have too many more nightmares, at least after, the 10th time he's done it. So he's kind of been completely removed and is now devoid of any guilt because, hey, it's just a video game. And even better than that, I've talked about what happens when you play these types of games. It's the same theory that they show on rats with Pavlovian responses. It causes responses of dopamine and Oxycontin or Pitocin or what, I don't remember which one it is. The happy chemicals in your brain. It causes reactions in the same areas of the brain where coke addicts have reactions when they get another hit. Same location that high fructose corn syrup reacts upon. It's an addiction. It's an addiction to adrenaline and to that thrill of the kill. And hey, there's no guilt when it's a video game because it's not real. Or is it? And that's what I'm saying. So they now are going to integrate this like beyond anything it's ever been into the military. And these guys will be able to just wave their arms and attack us. I mean us, end users, on our computers, servers, websites, radio shows, just by the swing of a hand. That to me is frightening. That is real. That is coming. That is part of this Minerva project that we just listened to. So, all right, let's do a little bit more. So we looked at the radicalization of youth. Well, wouldn't you know it, ISIS, the newest whack-a-mole. ISIS is out there now recruiting Western youth with their internet.
For my brothers, come to jihad and feel the honor we're feeling. Feel the happiness that we're feeling.
This new and very glossy recruitment video, which looks professionally shot and edited, was produced by ISIS in English. It's tailor-made to appeal to Americans and other Western jihadists. It features a 20-year-old British medical student who's traveled to Syria to wage jihad.
What prevents you from attaining martyrdom and the pleasure of your Lord? Look around you while you sit in comfort and ask yourself, is this how you want to die?
Analysts fear strategies like this may be working.
It's very significant that ISIS is using English. That means they have ambitions to attack Western countries. These videos attract certain people, young people, who find violence exciting.
Last month, Munir Muhammad Abu Salha, a 22-year-old from Vero Beach, Florida, became the first American suicide bomber in Syria. ISIS released clips showing the attack, declaring the feat a victory for them. U.S. officials say dozens of U.S. citizens are already in Syria. They're worried not just about the Americans currently there, they're even more concerned about the ones who might come back and plot attacks against the homeland.
And we're going to stop for a second because we heard a clip the other day out of El Paso, Texas, that they arrested 2 people, I believe. They haven't done anything. They went to a few of these websites, which, mind you, as they're spreading these all over CNN, who isn't going to go out? I mean, if you don't have half a clue, or even if you do have half a clue, hey, the internet's still free. I could still, go out and look up information. So these kids may have gone out to the site to see what this new glossy thing is that CNN's pimping everywhere. But then they arrested them for terror charges for booking a flight to Syria. Now, this to me sounds like, and I mean, ISIS, oh yes, all this money behind them, and look, it looks like a Hollywood movie. And look, they're all speaking English. You think? I just look at this as just such a load of freaking bullshit. Every bit of this is orchestrated. This is all going to lead to see something, say something. Your kids are even suspect now. Everybody, be afraid of everybody. Everybody who's doing anything is a suspect for a terrorist. I mean, really, that is what it's coming down to. All right, we got a little more.
To that end, Twitter has become a front line in the propaganda war ISIS is waging.
Oh yeah, if you use Twitter, you're a terrorist now too.
Many fighters claiming to be British constantly tweet updates, urging like-minded Britons to join them in Iraq and Syria. One asks, how can you see pictures of babies blown to pieces with their brains all over the floor and then question us about why we come here?
And I don't. Honestly, I don't. That's exactly what's... If there really is this radicalization, which I think that there is, it was all caused by us. By blowing up their kids and their wives and their nanas. All on the U.S. tax dollar.
Another posts, families in the villages taken over by ISIS are slowly returning and settling in and are happy and relieved to see ISIS occupying. And then there's YouTube, where a steady stream of clips are posted. Like this video purportedly showing ISIS supporters around the world standing in solidarity with a group so brutal, even Al-Qaeda has disowned them.
Yes, that was the telltale sign that this was all a load of bullshit. And we've talked about this, is the fact that Al-Qaeda in Pakistan does a propaganda video saying, well, we're not associated with those Al-Qaeda. I mean, just like they were saying, this is the way it works. In a terror organization, if you're a real terror organization, you don't give a shit who created the terror. You guys are going to make sure that terror is everywhere. So if that terror group did it or this terror group did it, you're all going to jump together in solidarity and say, yay! We struck back at the occupiers. You're not going to distinguish that I'm this Al-Qaeda and those guys. We don't have anything to do with them. That, to me, spoke volumes to the fact that the alphabet agencies have fully orchestrated and created what is happening right now. And I mean, we already know that they have. This all went back to Benghazi and the guns, and it was admitted that they were trained in Turkey, and then we sent them into Syria, and then they moved over into Iraq. That's it. This is financed by us.
Experts suggest that even though the propaganda is making waves, ISIS should be seen for what it really stands for.
It is really important to treat this as you would a deadly virus. If there is a deadly virus anywhere in the world, it is threatening to all of humanity.
Now, what's interesting is we were just talking about the Ebola and some of this crazy stuff. I still see that coming. The fact that they make this a virus, I bet somewhere in one of these videos they're probably going to talk about it as a contagion too.
So it needs to be treated as a virus that causes genocide.
Oh, maybe we all need to be vaccinated or given medication.
Wolf, it was just last month you and I were discussing a really brutal video showing ISIS going on a horrific killing spree throughout different provinces in Iraq. Well, the terrorism experts I'm speaking with today are saying that it's not really a surprise that ISIS is somewhat shifting tactics. They believe that if they show this softer side that they're trying to present now, that they'll be able to get more foreign recruits.
The softer side of ISIS. Oh, I don't even know what to say to this shit. You know, of course, then they released the memo justifying the killing of Americans via drone. And the court now allows the FBI in here. We're going to fast forward because I hate this beginning. The FBI is now going to allow, they have given them permission to torture Americans abroad.
Our politicians use the term national security to justify spying on the entire world, invading countries, stealing resources, you name it. And now a court just used national security to justify the FBI's practice of torturing Americans when they're traveling abroad.
There you go.
The U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia just dismissed a case brought by the ACLU on behalf of U.S. citizen Amir Mashal. In 2006, he was in Somalia when fighting broke out. He fled to Kenya, where he was trying to find a way back to the U.S. when Kenyan soldiers picked him up, tossed him in a filthy cell, and called in U.S. officials to decide what to do with him. The FBI showed up and started questioning him. They accused him of being trained by Al-Qaeda, which Mr. Mashal denied. So the FBI started threatening him. They told him they were going to hand him over to the Kenyans forever. They told him they were going to transfer him to Israel, where he'd be made to disappear.
Oh.
They threatened his family. They repeatedly threatened him with execution and torture and all kinds of bad stuff to get him to confess. When a Kenyan human rights group filed a petition on his behalf, the FBI secretly flew Mr. Mashal back to Somalia and then over to Ethiopia. In total, he was detained for over 4 months by the FBI, interrogated over 30 times, and he lost 80 pounds. He was finally returned home where no charges were ever filed against him. He was just let go with no explanation or apology. So the ACLU brought the case to court to try to get some protections in place for Americans against their own government when they travel abroad. Because apparently there's a need for that. In the past, other Americans have similar stories about being tortured by the FBI off American soil and brought cases to court that were also dismissed. And that's exactly what's happening in Mr. Mashal's case. Right now, it was just dismissed. And guess what the court used as grounds for dismissal? Yep. They said the U.S. government had a right to detain and torture an American citizen abroad because of national security. The court also said that while they found Mr. Mashal's case disturbing, they think it's really up to the legislative branch to figure it all out. It is such a joke. Our government treats us like a bunch of 3-year-olds whom they can keep in line by scaring us with their terrorism boogeyman and their played-out phrase, national security. But the very unfunny part of this joke is that now they've got the courts on their side. Tonight, let's talk about that by following me on Twitter @TheResident.
Yeah. And on that note, honestly, guys, I don't even know what to say at this point, but people really are falling for this lock, stock, and barrel. There are those out there that are waking up. I never really got to talk about some of our conversations that we had this weekend, but I have to say, I heard someone say on one of the shows that the 50 to 7-year-olds are still all sitting there eating this all up. They're not, guys. I'm telling you, the 50 to 7-year-olds are going, what? Are you shitting me? Actually, that was an exact quote. And, you know, I was really surprised that they knew about as much as I did about a lot of this stuff. They started paying attention. It is a big mind control Jedi trick. All of it. All of it. All of it. Stay aware. Be prepared. You know, San Francisco, they just launched a champagne delivering drone. So that should appease us for a while, but don't get too wasted because you'll be on the secret wait list next. All right, guys, well, we managed to knock another one out of the park. It is over. Last 15 seconds. It's Wednesday today, I believe. I don't know. I lose track. So stick around. We got all kinds of stuff on. Dana Martin's on tonight. Josh, Anti-Tyranny News. Mr. Jim Funky with his 2-hour show in Anti-Media Radio with Nick and DB. And there we go. All right, guys. All three of us will be around tomorrow morning. Make sure you come back, stick around. Have a great day. Take care.